Welcome friends to another r/I-don't-work-here-lady video. I know you don't work here, but I'm paying a salary of $1 million imaginary dollars for anyone that hits the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Griffey42, Neighbor Saves Me from Karen. I live in a small town that's 95% English speaking. There's a few French families due to the local industry. I speak enough French, about as well as an 8-year-old native speaker, that I made friends with a neighbor who doesn't speak English and can't drive because of seizures. Her husband's been out of town for work for the last few months, so I've taken her grocery shopping and to run errands. Her computer died last week, so I took her to a big box computer store to look at a new one. I work in electronics as a technician, so I knew a thing or two about brands, quality, pricing, and what computer to get based on her needs. I'm standing at the computer area with her, telling her about all the specs, tower versus laptop, etc, etc. I notice someone in my peripheral vision, but I ignore it. Our conversation switches over to school starting soon. Our daughters ride the bus together when the lady behind us pokes me in the shoulder and starts barking in French, "I need help too. You need to stop chatting and start helping. Do you know how hard it is to get help in French around here?" Big box employees wear blue polo shirts and slacks. I'm wearing a hippie maxi dress and Birkenstocks. I start trying to explain that I don't work here, but I think that's when she picked up on my obvious Anglo accent. She starts talking to me like I'm a misbehaving toddler. "I need you to help me set up my home network. I don't have time for you to chat about your kids. Have fun finding a job once your manager hears you're chatting about your kids instead of working." At this point, my neighbor pushes me out of the way. She's about twice as big as the Karen yelling at me. She walks up to the Karen and just shouts at her for 2 minutes. I couldn't catch most of it because I only know school French, but I'm picking out a lot of F-bombs. One of the staff comes up and tries to ask what's going on, but they aren't paying him any attention. When he realizes they're not English, he walks away. I guess he didn't think he could help. Karen storms off in a huff. I wish I know what was said. Also, my neighbor is awesome. If you were an employee at a place and you probably didn't get paid enough money and you walk up to two people shouting in a language you have no comprehension of and they don't pay you any attention, would you just kind of give up and let it resolve itself and walk away like that employee did? Or do you think that regardless, it's worth trying to de-escalate the situation? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Cookie Kale Chip. "No, random lady, your bratty daughter cannot ride my horse." I, 20-year-old female, was grooming my horse Clyde yesterday when a woman came up to me, tugging along a kid around 6 or 7. For context, the stable hands and trainers don't need to wear a specific clothes, although they usually wear the stable shirts to be more recognizable towards new people. I was wearing some tan breeches and a red polo, nothing really special, but I tended to get confused as staff pretty often, which I understand. The Karen was wearing way too expensive looking clothes to be at a barn, but I assumed she was just dropping off the kid and would come back at the end of the lesson. As I saw her direct her attention towards me, I prepared my whole speech about how I didn't work there and where I could direct you to go. Before I could even get a word out, she launched into a tirade about how terrible the service was and how she had spent hours trying to find someone to help her. I thought it was more than 5 minutes, the stable wasn't that big. "Oh, I don't," being cut off by her screaming in my face to let her kid ride my horse. I tried to calmly explain that no, her kid couldn't ride my horse, and no, she can't let her kid ride any other horses in the barn. No matter what I said, I couldn't convince her that I didn't work there and that she couldn't just let her daughter ride. Clyde is not fully trained as I recently got him and is still very young and inexperienced. I wouldn't even let a kid groom him, as he tends to nip at people. The kid proceeded to try to duck past me and try to pet his nose. I grabbed the kid's shoulder and gently pushed her back, genuinely worried about Clyde biting her. Karen gasped and screamed, "My daughter has every right to touch that horse. She's probably even better with horses than you are. Besides, you're just a worker, so you don't dare push my kid." That made me blow my gasket. Your daughter is not going to touch my horse. He's not suitable with kids and could injure your daughter. Your daughter does not know more than me. I've been riding for 15 years and I don't work here. Leave me alone, I shouted, wanting to punch that Karen straight in the face. At this point, my horse was starting to freak out and I turned to lead him back to his stall and just calm him and myself. Some barn staff came running over trying to assess what was happening. The woman kept screaming at me, but I just couldn't deal with her anymore and walked away since the staff had her occupied. My friend who worked there told me that they had threatened to call the cops to get her to leave because she kept demanding to have her child ride every single horse she saw. She's also banned from the stable now, so happy ending at least? I just don't understand anybody who says, my child has every right to touch that animal we have never known anything about. Next thing you know, they're gonna go to the zoo and the mom's gonna be like, my daughter has every right to be in that lion pen. She just wants to pet the cat, go get me your manager. I bet you guys don't even know more about lions than my daughter does anyways. And our final story of the day is by Damian St. James. My safety vest strikes again, manhandled in my wheelchair. So I've posted before about my safety vest. Due to being in a wheelchair and people around where I live being utterly vapid, knuckle-dragging, and mouth-breathing Neanderthals that don't pay attention, I'm pretty much forced to wear this high-visibility yellow-green safety vest. Where I run into most of my constant issues is at the local supermarket. It's owned by Kroger, but locally we know it as Fred Meyer, or Fred Meyers. Their trolley boys, cart wranglers, all wear near identical safety vests to mine. Only theirs have black trim added to the vest, along with Fred Meyer plastered on the left breast and on the back. That and the employees actually have name tags on. I look like a biker by comparison with my beard, heavy tattoos, all black clothes, and I top it off with a Pride 49ers hat. I mean, the hat alone should be a clear sign I don't work there, but nope. I should also point out that I'm a voice actor. When I'm out in public, I speak with a posh North London English accent. As I found due to implicit bias, people tend to treat me better. This comes into play here. The event. This event happened Friday. I headed out to perform what I call the double whammy, picking up my prescriptions from the pharmacy inside Fred Meyer and doing a bit of food shopping. I waved or greeted my regular employees and managers, as I'm in there so much and so often that I'm a pretty recognizable face. Between my, as I'm told, natural charisma and my appearance, I'm often greeted back warmly, or they greet me initially with politeness and a generally friendly atmosphere by the staff at my supermarket. I had wheeled my chair into the soup aisle. There were so many delicious options that I couldn't decide on what to get. I can be a bit indecisive, and trust me when I say I never shop hungry. I don't think I was in the aisle more than 5 minutes when I hear that throat-clearing ahem emanate from behind me. I ignore it because I have no idea it's meant for me or what. It happens again, and I continue to ignore it. That's when this lady grabbed the handles on my wheelchair and spun me around. It took every ounce of effort not to turn and swing on her because I had no idea who she was or her intentions. But obviously she had no qualms over grabbing someone's wheelchair and maneuvering them against their will. Before I could say a single word, our Karen in this situation starts to shout, "Hey, when a customer's trying to get your attention, you don't ignore them. I've been trying to get your attention for minutes now." She hadn't, and I don't like your attitude. I take a deep breath and do my best to unclench my hands from the armrests of my wheelchair. "Madam, I'm sorry if I've offended you." I wasn't, but I must inform you that I was cut off. Due to my mental quirks and conditioning as a child, anytime I'm interrupted, I get shut completely down, and I can't speak till the other person stops talking, so I went silent. "I don't want to hear any of your excuses. Just because you're in a freaking wheelchair doesn't mean you can get away with being an inconsiderate jerk. The world doesn't revolve around you." That's rich. "And there are other people in the world far more in need than you. I have half a mind to wheel you over to the service desk and report you to management." I waited a couple of beats, waiting to see if her rant was going to continue, but it didn't. She gave me a look that I could without any measure of difficulty correctly identify as a "your move" glare. I take another deep breath. "Mum, firstly, it's illegal and sociably irresponsible and outright tactless to manhandle a person's disability conveyance without their consent. That counts as assault. While yelling and screaming at me isn't illegal per se, I don't appreciate it. Tell me, Mum, what incentive do I have to assist you at this point? I don't work here. Look me over. I don't have a name tag on. I'm in black jeans and a t-shirt with a gay Pride 49ers hat on that clearly isn't uniform. I'm just wearing a safety vest for my safety." Karen looked like she was about to blow her skull cap with the force of Mount St. Helens, Krakatoa, and Tambora combined. I honestly don't remember what she said next. It was something about the typical, "how dare you," stacked with her rant about disabled people always thinking they can get away with anything just because they're crippled. That was when she lived up to her threat. She stepped around me, grabbed the handles, and began to push me. I was so bewildered that I froze because I never in 1,000 years would have thought she would actually do this. Now, I could have pulled the brake handles on my chair, but that would mean I'd have to take my hand off the merchandise basket in my lap, which would cause it to slip out once we stopped abruptly. To top that off with the fact, Karen would smack into my back and in the back of my head. I didn't want that. Two of the regular checkout attendants at the self-checkout area noticed me being pushed against my will towards customer service. I can just catch one I'm more familiar with. For the purposes of the story, let's call him Owen. Owen immediately gets on his radio. Before I could do anything more, we were at the desk. Karen immediately starts slapping her hand on the counter in that typical, "hey barkeep" kind of manner. A manager, a woman in her late 20s or 30s we'll call Amanda, turns to the Karen. Amanda is quite tall and loaded down with Marvel Comics tattoos, and we're very familiar with one another. Karen launches into a full-blown tirade accusing me of this, that, and everything from incompetence to an all-out disregard for customer service. Amanda just blinked and said, he doesn't work here." "What do you mean he doesn't work here? He's wearing a safety vest and your employees wear the same ones." Amanda says, "Well, ours say Fred Meyer on them. We also issue name tags for all employees for transparency, so if you have an issue, you know who they are. OP is a customer. He's in here at least 4 times a week." I could hear the hamster wheels turning in Karen's head. "So he doesn't work here? Let me speak to the store manager just in case." Amanda sighed, picked up her phone, and began to call the store manager. However, that call didn't finish, as the head of Fred Meyer Security, let's call him Clark, came striding over looking quite pissed. Clark is a mountain of a man, 6'5", 250 pounds, and built like a lumberjack. "Ma'am, what are you doing to OP? You really just grabbed a disabled person's wheelchair and moved them without their consent?" She says, He says, "That wasn't a question. You don't do that. Not at my store." She says, He says, "Can it? You need to come with me right now." If looks could kill, I'd be dead twice over between Karen's "you little jerk" glare and Clark's "you done effed up" look meant for Karen. Karen was escorted off to the security area in the back, sputtering like an old Edsel. Amanda asked if I was alright. I said I really wasn't, that things had been difficult for me this last week, and this really spiked my anxiety. "I'm just going to go home." Amanda did her best to comfort me. She stepped out of the booth and patted me on the shoulder. Owen, the self-checkout attendant, also asked if I was okay. I said I wasn't really. He offered, if I was comfortable, to push me back out to my car. I accepted. Amanda gave me a card and told me that when I was ready, I could use that number to have my groceries delivered, and for my trouble, she'd waive the fee for delivery. I thanked her and said that'd be best for now. Owen wheeled me out to my car, helped me get my wheelchair in my trunk, and I drove home. Update: I attended a meeting with the manager who was on duty the hour of the incident, as well as Clark, the security guard lead, my lawyer, and my local sheriff. As of this moment, the matter is now out of my hands. Sheriff's Department is moving ahead with an arrest, and my lawyer is working on a prosecution. I won't/can't disclose the details of the civil part of the case until the matter is considered closed. For the wonderful people whom suggested I file kidnapping charges, it turns out there's a specific charge for what she did. It's called transporting. Transporting is the act of manipulating an individual through some means from one place to another against their will. In my area, kidnapping requires a prolonged detention. As she ultimately pushed me to the kiosk, then let go of my chair, legally speaking, she had no further control of my movements, and it didn't count as kidnapping. My lawyer and I are working on the transporting charge at this time. Clark and Nice Manager, as well as some of the clerks that witnessed, all handed in statements to the sheriff on my behalf. He isn't a lawyer, but says there's a mountain of evidence that makes it highly unlikely she'll squeak away without some charge sticking. You just gotta love that in this situation, when a Karen acts up and acts absolutely foolish, finally there's a person like OP that's going to fight back and really drive home how much this person messed up. Because most of the time, people like that Karen, they'll get in trouble, they'll get kicked out from a store, they'll get banned from wherever, but that doesn't change their behavior. Somebody actually getting them arrested and prosecuting them, that might make them rethink their ways. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.